Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Now today we're taking a look at another nifty 50 lens, and it is the Canon RF 50mm lens I've got fitted to my Canon R8. Now this is a full frame 50mm lens designed for full frame bodies. It will work on the APS-C bodies. I've actually used it quite successfully on my Canon R10. The R10 there is getting a wide shot here. Actually, Fujifilm X-H2 is getting the close-up shot, and I've got a couple of other cameras here getting generic shots. Now, this 50mm lens will work on an APS-C body, but it will be equivalent to about 75mm on an APS-C body. So a nice portrait lens. I've got it fitted to my Canon R50, and I've taken a few portraits out in the garden using fill-in flash of willow here. I'm going to show you a few samples. I would suggest you take a look at them on my Flickr page rather than studying them here. But you will see how fantastic this lens is as a general purpose lens, but as a portrait lens. Now 50mm is probably the widest you would want to go for doing portraits, but it's nice and flattering. It's absolutely fine as a portrait lens, and also you haven't got to get too far away from the subject. This section of my garden here is actually really tight and really compact. It's surrounded by trees, so I couldn't get that far away from the subject, but I was still able to get near enough full frame images of willow without having to, you know, step back into the pond or whatever, because I didn't have a lot of space. So that's the ideal thing with this particular lens. Now it is under 200 quid or $200, so for an RF lens, I think that is great value for money. Now, they've had to save money somewhere to make a lens this good, optically this good, but they've used an STM motor rather than their new USM motors. So the motor is a little bit noisier and it's a little bit slower, but fractional. You're not really going to notice it. I use it a lot for video here in the studio because I haven't got to have a camera so far away that I'd have to knock a wall down if I use something like my 85mm lens. I have actually used my Canon RF 85mm lens for video very successfully. But I do find I have to have a camera body a bit too far away. I have to have it butted right up against the back wall. So not so practical here in the studio, where the 50mm lens is a lot more practical. It has no in-lens image stabilization, so you're reliant on either stabilization in the camera body or using a faster shutter speed. My Canon R8 has no image stabilization in it, but I find I've got some really successful shots using the nifty 50, using the RF 50mm lens. It's an f1.8 lens, and it has no weather sealing on the lens either, so be careful if you're using it out in showers or rainy weather. But other than that, it's actually a nice lens. It's a really nice, compact, lightweight lens, and ideal for portraits if you don't want to spend a fortune on the f1.2 lens or an L lens. It has only the one button on the side, and that is for setting the control ring to either be manual focus or to act as a control ring. I've got it set to control because I don't do manual focusing, so I've got it set to control, and I've set it in the camera body for exposure compensation. You can set it up for either aperture control, or you can set it up for adjusting the ISO. I've got it set up for exposure compensation. I find that's great. If I'm looking for the viewfinder, a half press on the shutter release, turn the ring, and then I can adjust my exposure compensation. I find that works really well for how I use it and how I take photographs. But yeah, looks really nice on the R8. It's got a 40mm filter thread, so it's quite a small filter thread, and you can fit obviously variable ND filters on there, whatever filters you want to put on there. I've actually got a K&F concept a variable ND filter I use if I'm filming outdoors in bright sunlight, purely so I can get that f1.8 aperture. Because at f1.8, it's wide enough to get lovely separation between the subject and the background, and looks really professional. So we go through a few images on the computer here that I've taken of willow out in the garden. Some have been using fill-in flash, and some I haven't used fill-in flash with. And it's great. The 50mm lens, as I said earlier, is great for getting full length if you can get far enough away from the subject, but great for getting, you know, your great headshots, portrait shots. And it is a really nice short portrait lens. I would prefer to use something like a 75 or 85mm lens, but this will do the job quite nicely without any problem whatsoever. Now, I would strongly suggest you take a look at these images on my Flickr page rather than studying on my YouTube channel here, because you get a much better look at them on Flickr. I'm just going to go spin through them here rather than studying them here. So and you can see here, the images are nice and sharp, really, really nice. So even though she's wearing glasses, the eye detect on the Canon R8 has worked beautifully. And you can see the background is thrown out of focus really, really nicely. So there is that lovely separation between Willow and the background. And I really do like the way that it does create that sort of effect. And then Willow took some photographs of me, and I did actually take some photographs of some flowers and, you know, and around the garden. So yeah, it's a great lens. You can see here, even with that image, the sensor sharpness is great, but because I shot it at f1.8, it has thrown the foreground and the background out of focus. So you can do that. You can achieve that effect even with a 50mm lens. So and it's a great value lens as well. So it's a good all-round lens. I really do like it. I'm really glad I purchased it. I'll be using it a great deal again. You can see the colours are lovely, but colours, a lot of that is down to the actual camera body as opposed to the lens. But the lens does have an impact on contrast and definition. And I think it works great on the R8. Yeah, I'm really loving this particular lens. Oh, there we go. There's a picture of little Molly. I'm loving this lens. I think the results from it are excellent. And it's a great all-rounder for the Canon R bodies. Certainly, if you're looking at investing in the entry-level full-frame bodies such as the R8, the RP, even the Canon EOS R, I think this is a great complementary lens to these bodies. Even though it hasn't got in-lens image stabilization, as long as you account for that by setting a slightly faster shutter speed, you're not going to have any issues. And being an f1.8 aperture, it's also great in low light, because obviously you can set a wider aperture if you need to. So yeah, I really like this particular lens, and I say it's a great lens for video as well, and I use it a lot in the studio here for filming, simply because of that 1.8 aperture, and it creates that lovely separation. I mean, at the moment I've got my XH2 with the Tamron 17-70 lens. Now that's got a maximum aperture of f2.8, so the background isn't as creamy as it would be if I had a lens with an f1.8 or an f2 aperture, but it still has got that separation. f2.8 still gives me that separation, but not as much as what an f1.8 lens would give. So yeah, highly recommended lens if you're into the Canon R mount systems. There we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you like the content of my videos. Would really, really appreciate that. Does help me grow the channel. Thanks very much. Cheers for now. Bye.